breakdowns in Canada, France, and Britain have left Schumacher's season in shambles and the Ferrari team in disarray. For Damon Hill, the season's first half was a dream with 6 wins in 8 races. But at the British Grand Prix, Hill crashed out, leaving the door open for his newest rival, his teammate Jacques Villeneuve, who won. Today, the main men of Formula One carry their fight to Germany. Hello again, everyone. I'm Bob Varsha. Welcome to the Hockenheim Ring in Germany, where after a morning shower and a wet session, the drivers are ready for round 11 of the Formula One World Driving Championship, the Grand Prix of Germany. This is the Hockenheim Ring, north of Stuttgart, south of Frankfurt, where the big airport lies. 33 major towns within an hour's drive, and as a result, some 125,000 rabid German Formula One fans have congregated at the Hockenheim Ring to watch their man, Michael Schumacher, try to bring Ferrari back. There is Rubens Barrichello putting his perhaps most important piece of equipment in place. We have clouds overhead. With me once again, Derek Bell. Derek, let's talk about the on-track buzz.
Yes, well, thank you, Bob. Williams-Renault need only 11 points from this race to win the Constructors' title for 1996, thereby equaling the record 8 currently held by Ferrari since the champion was constituted in 1958. After several days of testing in Italy, some into the night, developing a new under-tray and diffuser plus relocated rear suspension gives fuel to Ferrari's enthusiasm for a result. Shannon Racing, 51% shareholders of Forte Racing, announced the team would be relaunched as soon as Guido Forte is replaced, having resigned his directorship of Forte Racing. Frank Williams has confirmed that Jacques Villeneuve is staying with his team from 1997. Heinz-Harald Frentzen is hotly rumoured to be his teammate, following the news that Frank Williams has taken up an option on his services for a further month.
Let's talk about that a little bit further. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, renowned by many in Germany as being as fast as Michael Schumacher for a single lap, has an option with the Williams team for 1997. Now, what does this mean to the present Williams teammates? Well, for Jacques Villeneuve, who was reportedly on the outs with the team just a few races ago, after his victory in Britain, Frank Williams issued a press release saying, Villeneuve will be in my team next year. Where does that leave Damon Hill, who will likely win the World Driving Championship this year? If he does, he says he wants to double his salary, and spending, $12 to $18 million on drivers is not what Frank Williams likes to do. So there's a possibility that the #1 plate may leave the Williams team again in 1997, leaving Villeneuve and Frentzen in the team. Now let's talk a little bit about Ferrari. They shoot horses, don't they? The prancing horse has had a tough time in recent races. Check out the last 3, Canada, France, and Great Britain, and the total number of laps completed by their drivers. Eddie Irvine, just 11 laps, 44 for Michael Schumacher. Obviously, no points for any of them, and the Italian press have been in an uproar. But once again, Ferrari are here. Once again, they are fairly quick, and they will try to get their season back on track. With more on that, let's join James Allen, standing by with Ferrari driver Eddie Irvine to talk about changes for Britain.
Well, this weekend in Hockenheim sees the arrival at Ferrari of some much-needed development parts. Eddie Irvine, what have you got on the car this weekend that's new?
We have a new rear suspension and a new floor. Aerodynamically, obviously, the floor is probably the most important thing in the car.
Has it made much of an improvement so far?
We don't know. To be honest, this circuit's so different from everywhere you go to, so we can't really say yet.
Now, you've had a little bit of a dry run recently, a few 5-lappers, a few 1-lappers. Obviously, a finish for you is something you must be really looking forward to.
I don't want to finish if it's last. I want to have a strong race running at the front. Hopefully this weekend it's the time.
Feel you're moving forward?
I felt I did a test, at Fiorano 2 days ago, just before I came here, and I felt we made a step, so we see.
Very best of luck.
Thanks.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Did I say Britain? Of course I meant Germany. Those changes were to have been in the cars for Britain, but it didn't happen. And the Fiorano circuit, where Ferrari tests, is nothing like what we have here at Hockenheim. As you take a look at former winners of the great Grand Prix here in Germany, this race goes back all the way to the 1920s when Caracciola and Rosemeyer were in their prime. It has a great history, and we'll talk about that as the day goes on. Plenty to come. Stay with us for more from Germany. Our coverage of the Formula One Grand Prix of Germany is brought to you by Eagle and the exciting Eagle Talon. Put our performance and technology to the test. It's a blue sky overhead and warm temperatures as we get set for the 11th race of 16 in the World Driving Championship, the Grand Prix of Germany. We've already introduced you to Heinz-Harald Frentzen of Germany, who many people look to join the Williams team next year. James Allen joins with Heinz Harold in this week's edition of Off Track Buzz.
If you believe all the stories in the Formula One pit lane at the moment, every top team wants Heinz Harold Frentzen to drive their car next year. Well, not wishing to miss out, I want him to drive my car too. 1965 Ford Mustang convertible. Hi, Heinz.
Hi.
How you doing?
Not bad.
So, Heinz Harold, you enjoy driving these old cars?
It's a nice sound. V8. It's funny to drive.
There's an awful lot of rumour going around at the moment in the Formula One pit lane that you're going to move to a top team for '97, probably even Williams. Do you listen to the rumour and gossip around the pit lane?
Yes, it's nice. Of course, I'm speaking to some teams at the moment because my contract expires with Sauber before in the end of '96, and of course there are some negotiations at the moment. The only thing I can say in that question is that I'm talking to other teams. That's right. And there's some possibility that I change the team.
What's the true story about the approach Williams made to you in 1994?
Frank Williams came to me and asking me if I want to drive for Williams in the same season after the death of Ayrton Senna. And I was very proud that he asked me, and it was for me impossible to disappoint Peter Sauber, so I decided to stay with Sauber.
But what do you think you've done that's brought you to the attention of these teams? Why are they knocking on your door?
Well, it's a very difficult question. I've never been asked. I think you probably should ask the teams, and not or the team who are interested in me.
A lot of racing drivers have other business interests alongside their racing career, but with you it's rugs. Now, how did you get into rugs?
It was not like that. I woke up in the morning and said, oh, today I want to design carpets. It was like I was designing my first apartment, and I had to make my design for furniture, carpets, pictures, and everything. You can buy so many nice pictures for the walls, but you have to use always the same standard of carpets, you know. And I have nice designs. For example, I take racing tracks, you know, like Hockenheim, Barcelona, Brazil, Monaco, all kind of tracks. I make the track design, original track, and around the track there are the atmosphere of the track, you know. Thank you very much. I enjoyed.
You're very welcome. Maybe one day I can drive your car.
Maybe.
All right, thank you, James. And world-famous carpet designer Heinz Harold Frentzen. It's a brave man who puts his classic Mustang in the hands of a racing driver, but James survived. Now let's talk about the racetrack here at Hockenheim, Derek.
Yeah, well, of course, it's a 4.2-mile circuit, one of the fastest in the World Championship, 4 times over 200 miles an hour, and 4 second-gear corners. Very, very hard on the engine, 75% of the time on full throttle. Here we're going to pick up on the new Jim Clark curves. They arrive at over 200 miles an hour in 6th gear. They change down, straight down, 2nd gear acceleration, right up to 6th gear where they come into the East curve. Again, they come in there, 6th gear, down to 2nd gear, pull through there, pull out at 120, 130 miles an hour, accelerating down to the center curves. Again, over 200 miles an hour, through the center curves, down to 2nd gear, accelerating out very hard, lots of traction, and accelerating again up to 200 miles an hour, arriving into the famous stadium. In the stadium, 4th gear, 4th gear, 2nd gear through the Sachs curve, 3rd gear in the little section down to the South curve, accelerating past the pits at 170 miles an hour. Let's go to Andrew Tilley for track setup.
My name's Andrew Tilley. I work for the Jordan team as Martin Brundle's race engineer. To give you a bit of an idea about the things we do to the car to set it up for Hockenheim. Probably the most significant thing about Hockenheim compared to other circuits is the fact that the straights are very, very long here. So we tend to run the cars with low drag. Low drag means low downforce. So the small rear wing that you see here gives us a good straight line speed. We probably have 340, 345 kilometers here, which is pretty quick. Other than that, the car settings are not so different than you'd find at another circuit, maybe a little bit softer springs, a few other small changes. In terms of race strategy, tyre life here is pretty good, really. We don't have so many, or the ratio of corners to straights is not so big here, so the tyres last pretty well. 1 or 2 stops is probably going to be the favourite for this year, I guess.
All right, thank you, Andrew. Of course, the Hockenheim Ring's place in the history book is a sad one. This is where Jim Clark was killed in 1968 in a Formula 2 race. Here's the starting grid for today's event. Damon Hill, his 7th pole of the year. He crashed out of this race in his Williams Renault a year ago and has never won here in Germany. He'll start next to Gerhard Berger, the 94 winner of this race, his best qualifying performance of the year for Benetton. On row 2, Michael Schumacher, the defending champion here at the Hockenheim Ring. Starting his 80th GP, he'll be alongside Mika Hakkinen, 3rd of the British Grand Prix 2 weeks ago for McLaren Mercedes. Row 3 will be Jean Alesi in the Benetton Renault, and the winner of the British Grand Prix for Williams, Jacques Villeneuve. On row 4, David Coulthard in the McLaren Mercedes, 2nd to his teammate Hakkinen in the morning warm-up. He'll be alongside Eddie Irvine in the Ferrari. Then we go team by team. First, the Jordans on row 5. Rubens Barrichello and Martin Brundle returning to the Hockenheim Ring after a 2-year absence. On row 6, the Ligers and the Izzies, Pedro Diniz and Olivier Panis. Diniz out-qualifying his teammate, which really raised some eyebrows. On row 7, the Saubers, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who actually qualified slower than he did a year ago here at Hockenheim. Johnny Herbert will be next to him. On row 8, the Tyrrells, Mika Salo and Ukio Katayama of Japan. They actually tried front tires on the rear of the Tyrrells to try to get better straight line speed with a lower aerodynamic profile in qualifying, but it didn't work very well. On row 9, the footwork of Jos Verstappen and the Minardi of Pedro Lamy. And all alone on row 10, Ricardo Rossetto Brazil in the footwork, Giovanni Lavaggi, the sports car winner of the Daytona 24 Hours a couple of years ago, sitting in with the Minardi team for Giancarlo Fisichella, did not qualify within 107% of pole time, as Damon Hill's bonsai lap that knocked Michael Schumacher off the pole also knocked Lavaggi out of the race. We'll take a quick time out and be back with more, including the start of the Grand Prix of Germany. Stay with us. Welcome back live to the Hockenheim Ring. Bob Barsha, Derek Bell with you. We've talked about the Constructors' Championship. That is the one that is on the line this weekend. Williams could win it. They lead by 70 points. If that margin is 80 at the end of the day, they will be untouchable, and they will pick up their 8th Constructors' title. The cars are finishing their warm-up laps. There you see the Drivers' Championship. Damon Hill just 15 ahead of Jacques Villeneuve, with Michael Schumacher, Jean Alesi, and David Coulthard trailing. As I mentioned, it is now partly sunny, but there was rain this morning. There is still a mist hanging in the air, and there are patches of this racetrack that are wet offline. And that is a part of life here at Hockenheim, where trees come right down to the edge of the racetrack, as you'll see in a moment. And as a result, moisture has a very difficult time dissipating. 125,000 strong. The Germans are here. There are Brits here as well to support Damon Hill. Ferrari flags everywhere in the grandstand, red, the predominant color in the crowd, as the field comes around. In the stadium section with its massive concrete grandstands, the bulk of the crowd is here. They will want Michael Schumacher to win. You see the field forming up moments away from the start of this race. A very tight right-hander coming up at the first corner, and the cars will arrive somewhere in the region of 100 miles an hour. Here come the lights. Turn up the volume and enjoy the sights and sounds of a Formula One standing start. And once again, Damon Hill does not get a good start. He is 3rd going into the first corner. 3 wide, that won't work. Whoa.
But it did. I don't know how they did that, because 2 years ago there's a massive shunt there. They've got to be very careful because there's a lot of moisture on the edges of the circuit in certain areas, so it's going to be very difficult to overtake down the inside or to do some very silly up-braking maneuvers. Here it's dry, as you can see.
Oh, I can't believe there's not contact, and there is at the very back. It looks like Jasper Verstappen, yes, and the footwork is out of the race.
And he was right on the very back of the grid. He had no reason to be going out back there. Hakkinen having a look down the inside there. He's actually got through. He needed to because he was well up at the front in qualifying and practice sessions. Fastest this morning in warm-up, but way back now.
That's the Ost curve with a big dip in that chicane. And look at the moisture offline to the right of the racetrack.
Yeah, there'll be no banzai moves down the inside here for overtaking going into the center curves. Isn't it wonderful to see two Benettons in front of the race? It's been a long time since we've seen that at the start.
They have been rejuvenated in recent races. Gerhard Berger leads, the winner of this race 2 years ago when Mika Hakkinen triggered a 10-car crash, but officials did not stop the race. And Gerhard Berger ended a 4-year win drought for Ferrari, leading 2 LaRusses, 2 Ligers, and 2 Footworks, one of the most extraordinary leaderboards at the end of a race in recent years.
He's actually got a very, very nice start there. He's pulled away a little bit from Alesi. Alesi's obviously fending off Hill, and whether there's any teamwork there, but he obviously would be nice for him to hold Hill back a bit to let Berger get away, but I'm sure Jean's not thinking about that at this point. But of course, as you said, Berger did win 2 years ago, and it's a circuit that obviously suits him. They've got the car right, they're much happier with it. They've done a heck of a lot of testing, as everybody has done in Formula One just lately, Ferrari particularly, but Ferrari aren't shining right now, but at least they're not out at this point. Things do look a lot more promising for them.
Now, with most of the crowd in that stadium section, the cars rocket off into the distance. You see Verstappen's footwork being carried off. There is the running order, the World Feed graphics. Our pictures coming to us from RTL Television. And this weekend, Formula One is debuting a new pay-per-view service in Germany that allows viewers, for a substantial fee, to watch 5 different channels of action. The World Feed, timing and scoring, slow-mo replays, onboard cameras, and what have you. Future years, it may be expanded worldwide.
Whoa, look at Schumacher getting some opposite lock on there coming out of the east curve. He's really got to get the traction. They say that their under tray is far, far better than it was, but of course, there's no doubt there's a little bit of moisture there on those corners.
Up to 199 miles an hour before reaching the center curves.
Oh, that Ferrari is sliding around a lot. You never know, they might have reduced a bit of the downforce. It's a very, very low downforce circuit. They need a maximum amount of straight line speed they can get. And of course, they compromise their grip and traction in slower corners. And of course, that's exactly what's happening now. Schumacher's getting a lot of sliding down.
Let's take another look at the start. Gerhard Berger got a beauty on the left of your screen. On the right, Damon Hill. Some problems getting away in the Williams as he had 2 weeks ago in Britain. Watch on the left. First Berger, and then from the right, you see Jean Alesi duck behind the Williams and then take the line going into turn 1. Brilliant start for the Frenchman.
You just see the way Schumacher dived from his left side of the track completely across the right, and I think cut Hakkinen right off. Hakkinen made a major move out of the way there.
It's Berger and Alesi, the Benetton boys out front. Benetton using a 7-speed transmission, as is the Jordan team. Ferrari planned to bring one here, but they are not happy with it, so they will keep it for the next race. There's Hakkinen, Barrichello, and Brundle. And now the sun beginning to shine brightly. You see the shadows of the trees on the racetrack. Up to 195 miles an hour before getting hard on the brakes for the Ost curve, the east curve. 180 times the drivers will stomp hard on these carbon fiber brakes to bring the cars down from almost 200 miles an hour to about 100 miles an hour for the corners. In some case, less than that. In the Clark and Senna curves, they are down to 60 miles an hour. Great look from Irvine's Ferrari as they head to the Senna curves. While the field strings out, we'll take a quick time out and be back with more live from Germany. Welcome back live to the Hockenheim ring. Bob Varsha, Derek Bell with you. There you see Jacques Villeneuve with Eddie Irvine just behind him. Villeneuve started 6th, did not get a great start. We're in the early laps of the German Grand Prix. Only one car officially out of the race at this point, Jos Verstappen, who went off at the Jim Clark chicane. This track a lot like the Michigan Oval where the Indy cars are racing today. Very, very hard on engines, and we expect a lot of attrition.
Great to see such slipstreaming battles going on. Some nice groups, 2 or 3 cars. It'd be lovely to think you could stay at this the whole race. But I don't think there's going to be any waiting for pit stops this race. They say that there's probably only going to be 1 pit stop, 1 fuel stop. So therefore the guys are going to have to race their hearts out the whole way. There's going to be no relief in the pits, as they say. It was interesting to watch Irvine having a look inside Villeneuve on the just previous shots we saw a few minutes ago, and Villeneuve weaving all over the road to stop him going by. Some very, very good race techniques going on there, and of course Irvine's no stranger to battling around, as we remember with Senna once before, some years ago in his first Formula One race.
Notice the rear wings on these cars, laid flat. You can't read the sponsor names. That's how low the downforce is. You want very low drag, but you still have to get through that twisty stadium section, and so, as everywhere else, it's a compromise. Another view of the start. On the left, Gerhard Berger makes up a couple of car lengths on Damon Hill in the first 40 yards or so, and just drives right by him. And then Jean Alesi somehow got from 3rd to 2nd.
Well, that was because Schumacher swept right across the track to block out Häkkinen, allowing this big gap on the left-hand side of the track.
Exactly. Watch the red car. That's Schumacher going right over to Häkkinen and almost getting out of shape. Oh, man, I think I might have a word with Schumacher if I'm Häkkinen after that.
Yeah, he really was unpleasant on that move. But that's racing, and there was no incident after Häkkinen. As I said, his incident a couple of years ago, he wasn't about to make a fool of himself again, but it wouldn't have been his fault, that's for sure.
No change in the running order. There's Damon Hill running 3rd. The only car out of the race is Verstappen with the TWR team.
Now, it really would be good to see Damon do some real racecraft here. He's got to show this week that he can overtake. We've seen so much of him doing so well this year when he's been in front, but he's never really shone from a 2nd or 3rd or 4th or 5th place on the grid. Oh, sorry, in the race. He's really got to get out there and do some overtaking. He can't just sit there and let it cruise in. As far as the World Championship's concerned, he could allow it to happen. But of course, as far as his own personal position with Williams, and as far as the racing world's concerned, he has got to do some overtaking in this race, and we know that really they have the superior car.
Couldn't blame Damon Hill if he has a case of the yips going into that right-hander, the first corner. That's where he flew off the racetrack last year. Nobody quite explained why. 2 weeks ago in Britain, he had a loose wheel that threw him into a spin in the tight right-hander. The first corner at Copse in Britain put him off there. There's Verstappen's car in the background. As you watch Ferrari and McLaren. McLaren brought a new iteration of the Mercedes engine this weekend, and Mika Häkkinen got it because he was the better qualified of the 2 drivers. That's David Coulthard running right behind the Ferrari.
Because Coulthard's in the engine, which is meant to be the reliable one, and not quite as fast. And you've got Häkkinen actually further back, but that was really due to his unfortunate chopping up by Michael Schumacher at the start, which lost him quite a lot of time.
This race is the kingmaker in Formula One in more than half of the German Grand Prix run in the modern era. 22 of 43 winners of this race have gone on to win the World Championship, which I suspect says something about the importance of out-and-out horsepower in Formula One. If you've got the car to win here, you can win just about anywhere. Eddie Irvine, 11 laps completed in his last 3 Grands Prix. He's in the red Ferrari, being trailed by Mika Häkkinen in the McLaren Mercedes.
He was having a look down the inside there as they came into the Sachs curve, but there was no way through. It's quite a good corner to overtake on because you can zip down inside. You can afford to allow the car get a bit sideways because, in fact, there's quite a severe camber there, so the car doesn't break away from you as quick as you would if it was a completely flat corner. It's a very nice corner to zap down inside somebody and overtake. You see the bumpiness on the outside of that corner. In fact, Villeneuve was quite surprised how bumpy the circuit was. He thought it would be billiard smooth, rather like Silverstone, apart from a couple of bumps, but Hockenheim is quite bumpy. And you can see Häkkinen there really having a look down the inside, see if he can get by, but no way, he can't get by over.
Coming up to the Jim Clark curve, just off the racetrack, behind the guardrail on the left of your screen, is a memorial to the Scotsman, the original Flying Scot, the world champion. No one ever explained why his Formula 2 Lotus flew off the racetrack and into the trees on that fateful day in 1968, in a race that included Derek Bell.
Yes, it was probably my second professional race. It really was a tragic thing for me because it shattered my illusion. Jimmy Clark was my hero, and there he was, totally on his own, going off and having the most horrific accident. In fact, right where the Clark curves are. Of course, there wasn't a curve there then any more than there was this center curve. And we used to go two abreast down there, and it was raining. And Jimmy, for some reason, disappeared off the road. I have my own personal ideas on it, which we haven't got time to go into now, but it was just one of those unfortunate things, but tragic nonetheless.
Tragedy. Our thoughts are with people in Atlanta. The bomb in Centennial Park caused such a ruckus at the Olympics. We'll be back with more live from Germany. Back live in Germany, Bob Barsha, Derek Bell with you. As the cars stream into the stadium section here at the Hockenheim ring. This track once extended into the village of Hockenheim, where one of the turns went around the local graveyard. But years later, when the German authorities decided they wanted to build a high-speed Autobahn right through the middle of the racetrack, the organizers of the track drove a hard bargain and used the funds to rebuild the track, and they built this stadium section with the help of Dutch track designer John Hugenholtz.
Isn't that a beautiful shot to see Schumacher there with Eddie Irvine very close behind? It's great for Eddie Irvine, I think, for a boost in his morale and everything. Ferrari say he's going to stay there next year, but you never know these days. But to see him actually running that close to Schumacher and looking as though, in fact, if he could get by it, maybe the car in front, he could actually stay with him all the way. But he's right there, and that's very good.
The word from the pits, Jos Verstappen says he got loose at the Jim Clark chicane and actually clobbered Johnny Herbert before bouncing into the gravel trap. Herbert is still out there. Olivier Panis flat spotted his tires at the start. He has made a pit stop for new B compound Goodyears. He is running at the back of the pack. You ride with Mika Hakkinen. Just about to listen to that Mercedes V10 scream up beyond 16,000 revs. Gerhard Berger leads.
Sorry, I was just going to say, Hill's really going to start working on this now. He's got to get by. Now, historically, of course, you could come up there at your 200 miles an hour, pull out of the slipstream, out of the draft, as we say in America, and go down the inside. But they're braking from 200 down to 60, 70 miles an hour, and the car automatically downshifts itself. It actually blips the throttle, and he goes straight down second gear. But they're pulling about 4G on deceleration. And over that period of deceleration, it's only over 80 yards, 80, 90 yards, and that's nothing. There's no room for you to go by, because by the time you've had a look, you're into the corner. And that's why we're not getting this overtaking that we'd love to see and what motor racing in Formula One desperately needs. I mean, look at this group here. They're all slipstreaming one another. If that was NASCAR, the guys will be pulling out and sliding by and going by. But no way in this, they just cannot get by. There is just no room for it. So therefore, they have to barge their way by and risk an incident. The Schumacher is towing this lot down. I mean, somebody could come up behind like nobody's business and make a great impression on this group, but wouldn't be able to get by once they got there.
Somebody needs to do a little of that NASCAR style, taking the air off his spoiler. Tough to do here. There isn't much spoiler on these cars.
Well, there's talk about putting shredded tires onto these cars for the future, unless somebody does something about slowing the cars down or helping with this, actually overtaking maneuver. The shredded tires would be a major disaster, of course, but it's the sort of thing that people throw in just to cause a stir.
Well, exactly. The heavy-handed approach to rules drafting. Gerhard Berger now opening up a bit of a gap over Jean Alesi and Damon Hill. Hill obviously being held up. Still wet spots off the line.
But of course, there's no doubt about it that Alesi is sort of blocking Hill, and he's moving across the track at times. We haven't seen it now, but there's no doubt there's areas where he's actually blocking Hill out. Right here, he's holding him out there so he can't slip by, whipping over to get his braking, and then flicking into the corner. But as I say, his car is automatically flicking down from, in fact, 7th gear on the Benetton cars. Jordan's and Benetton have 7-speed gearboxes, and everybody else has 6.
There you see the top 6 in points and where they are running right now. Damon Hill leads Jacques Villeneuve by 15 points in the championship and by 3 places on the racetrack. Michael Schumacher is 4th, Jean Alesi 2nd, Eddie Irvine 7th, and Gerhard Berger leading. So all of the major suspects are right up front in this race. A little twitch there from the McLaren. Hakkinen needing to feather that throttle and then hard on it as he turns onto the start-finish straightaway. His gearbox has changed gear in about 35 milliseconds, 35 1,000th of a second.
And they downshift 10 milliseconds slower than that because they have to allow for the blipping of the throttle, which is done by the computer. interesting to note that all the electronic equipment they have on these cars weighs around about 50 pounds. It's a tremendous amount of extra weight to have on the car, just for electronics. Whoa, look how close Häkkinen is there. Really, really close under braking.
Now, the word from the Ferrari pits is that Schumacher is on a one-stop strategy, Eddie Irvine on a two-stop, so Häkkinen is going to be behind for a while until he gets a chance to stop. Unless he can get around Eddie Irvine. Irvine's first stop probably won't come until about 18 laps into this race unofficially. Listen to that engine. For as long as you can.
He holds fifth for a long time before he gets into sixth gear. Hill's on, right, sorry, Bob, but there's Hill right up the back of Alesi, but he can't do anything about him.
See what I mean about the trees coming right down to the edge of the racetrack. Schumacher, Coulthard, Villeneuve, Irvine, and Häkkinen. Watch as they come down, if the shot shows it. This is actually a drag strip that they're running on. Off to the left there is the bleach box and the launch pads.
They're coming into the Sachs curve. As I say, this quite well cambered corner. He's got a bit of understeer as he goes in. Gets it on coming out, but it's because of the camber, he's not actually getting oversteer and it's not sliding much to the back.
We are making history today here at the German Grand Prix. For the first time since 1973, there are no Italian drivers in a Formula One World Championship Grand Prix. Who'd have guessed it? Grand Prix of Germany live here on ESPN 2. You just saw Michael Schumacher, who last year became the first German to win his home Grand Prix in modern Formula One history, dating back to 1950. Of course, back in the 20s and 30s, Rudy Caracciola won. Bernd Rosemeyer also won before he died in a world land speed record attempt on the nearby Autobahn in 1938. There is a glorious history to German Grand Prix racing, which makes it an even greater surprise that Michael Schumacher was also the first German to win the Formula One World Championship.
Don't forget Mr. Hans Stuck as well.
That's right, Hans Stuck, older and younger.
Yeah, not the one we have now. Bless his heart.
You just noticed that boxing promo coming up tonight at 9 p.m. from the Foxwoods Resorts, the WBU International Junior Welterweight Championship. Mickey Ward taking on Louis Viter. Check it out tonight at 9 p.m. here on The Deuce.
Schumacher is really holding up this group. In fact, Ferrari, he's doing a very good job of blocking. Coulthard's right all over him. Häkkinen's all over the back of Irvine, but he can't do anything about it.
And this group is falling back from our three front runners. The two Benettons, Gerhard Berger leading, plus Damon Hill. Michael Schumacher leading this train of Coulthard, Villeneuve, Irvine, and Mika Häkkinen are definitely slowing down.
Of course, if Irvine's got two fuel stops to make, which we hear is possible, as opposed to Schumacher's one, then of course this is going to break it all up.
Absolutely.
We haven't really heard anything about tyre wear in this particular race. They're all running B compounds, I believe I'm right in saying. But of course, we just don't know what the temperatures are. The temperatures are much cooler. That is a very good move to bring Häkkinen in for fueling at this point, because when he goes out, he'll have a clear bit of road in front of him.
Of course, it will fall to Häkkinen to go as quickly as he can on new tires. Speaking of tires, Damon Hill started on used rubber here, which is a bit unusual. There you see the teams going to work. A wipe to the visor. Fuel and tires. 8.2 seconds, not up. Oh, and had trouble getting away.
No, come on, don't. It's got to run, it's got to run. It's just clearing itself.
And he's on scrub tires as well.
Well, of course, you see, you put brand new tires on in this sort of situation. Because of the low downforce, they're not going to get quite as much grip. He doesn't seem to be accelerating very hard to me.
Oh, no, what a
don't
disappointment. Mika Häkkinen pulling off in Mercedes' home race. Obviously, those problems in the pit lane never resolved. Perhaps he couldn't get a gear or the clutch let him down. Here's Pedro Lamy in the Minardi, the only Minardi in the race. Meanwhile, Berger, Alesi, and Hill rocketing back to the stadium section again. Question is, will they be far enough ahead of Michael Schumacher, who's on a one-stop strategy for Ferrari, that they can get in and out?
Look at those Renault engines. Well, we talk about is the actual car manufacturers, but look at Renault. First three places on the race, and they're storming away from everybody. As Häkkinen puts it up against the guardrail quietly, as close as he can away from danger, gets out.
And puts the wheel back on, or it'll cost you a lot of money.
He's learned that one. That is a tragedy, because it would be wonderful to see that development engine go so far. One doesn't know whether it really was the engine, or whether that was the real reason he came in, when maybe he did have a fault with the engine when he stopped. But he certainly didn't do much checking. They just put the tires on, refueled, and off he went.
Ferrari pit accepts Eddie Irvine.
There is a 75-mile-an-hour speed limit, so it's somewhat faster than most of the Grand Prix we go at. Whoa. That's what doesn't do the drive shafts any good at all, is that as it takes off with the wheels leaping in the air trying to get some traction. But he didn't leave his drive shafts behind, I'm sorry.
9.9 seconds. Not a very quick stop. For these guys on a two-stop strategy, you expect something more on the order of 7.5 to 8 seconds on a pit stop, since they don't have to put in an awful lot of fuel, and with 3 men at every corner, changing the tires takes no time at all.
It was interesting to note that at Silverstone, which we learned afterwards, is that Damon Hill had the option. He was going to go for a two-stop if he fancied it. He was going to go for a one-stop if he had to. He didn't really have to worry about doing a two-stop unless it was really very, very necessary. So he had enough fuel to carry him through.
There is the interval from the top three back to Schumacher, Coulthard, and Villeneuve, who now no longer have Mika Hakkinen behind them or Eddie Irvine. Both pitted. Irvine survived to race again. Hakkinen's McLaren did not. Word from the McLaren pits is they have no initial indications of why Mika Hakkinen stopped. So obviously it was not something he knew about coming in, or at least communicate to the pits. There you see the running order. You don't need the numbers to tell you. Coulthard, Villeneuve, Schumacher all running very close together, and Coulthard leaves a huge strip of rubber off the corner.
He really got a bit of a tank slapper on there coming out. The flags aren't waving too much at the moment, and not too many fireworks. But there have been fireworks every time Schumacher came in the stadium during qualifying. Fireworks, and the bugles were blaring.
30 of 45 laps remain in the race, and the pit stops will tell the story once again. Today here in Germany, stand by for more live from the Hockenheim ring. Back live in Germany, David Coulthard brings his McLaren Mercedes into the pits. His teammate Mika Hakkinen, we understand, suffered a gearbox failure. The car kept shifting itself into neutral. Away goes the young Scotsman, the only McLaren still in the race. While we have a moment, we want to talk to you about some more auto racing. ESPN and the Deuce will be all over Indianapolis, Indiana, around the running of the Brickyard 400. Thursday and Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, we will have qualifying here on ESPN2. We'll also have practice. We'll have Thunder showing the sprint cars. In addition to qualifying, we'll have the Craftsman Truck Series. All of it surrounding the Brickyard 400 here on ESPN2 and ESPN. So check it out. Here in the German Grand Prix, the race leader is Jean Alesi. There he is, leading Gerhard Berger and Damon Hill, but we expect they are on two-stop strategies, so they will have less fuel in the car. Michael Schumacher, running in fourth place, we know is on a one-stop strategy, so he's going to want to stay as close to these front runners as he can so that he can assume the lead when they pit. Action in the Sauber pits. This is Johnny Herbert.
Schumacher might well wish that he could come in and change tires a couple of times so he can get a bit more traction, a bit more grip out of them. Maybe it's not working as well as he thought, but he's certainly sliding around a lot.
Jean Alesi and Damon Hill. Hill with 6 victories in the first 8 races of this year. Took a lead in the World Championship that has now actually come down to 15 points after he fell out of the British Grand Prix, and his teammate Jacques Villeneuve won it. Long stop for Johnny Herbert, working on the left rear. Remember, he was hit by Jos Verstappen at the first chicane of this race, so they're taking the time to fix something. There's Verstappen's car in the background. There is Johnny Herbert in the pits. This is not good news.
They have the engine cover off, so they're having a really good look around back there. But of course, we haven't seen much of him in the race. He's probably been round near the back end.
Williams' team walks into the pits to get ready to go to work. The mechanics are not allowed into the pits until just before their car gets there, and they have to leave the pit area immediately. Several teams this year have been whacked with $10,000 fines for not being quick enough about getting out of the pit lane.
Alesi's doing an amazingly good job of holding off Damon, although Damon doesn't seem to be making many inroads on him, not trying very hard to go down the inside. He's looking, but he's not doing much about it, but they're actually catching Gerhard Berger back up again. Of course, Alesi would love to use Berger for a slipstream, but of course, as soon as he pulls over to follow Berger, he gives Damon that little bit of opening he might need to go by.
Schumacher and Villeneuve. Villeneuve could do his teammate a world of good here if he can get in front of Schumacher.
You do Villeneuve a world of good as well, but he is already confirmed for next year. All these drivers have really got to get out there and prove their worth today. As I say, not Villeneuve, in fact, but it'll be tremendous for him in front of this very German crowd to actually make a move on Schumacher and just show how good he is, because I don't think the Germans are fully aware just how talented Jacques Villeneuve is.
Michael Schumacher, pressed about his future at Ferrari, said, "I want to bring the world championship back to Ferrari, and I will be there as long as it takes," which is a pretty stout statement considering the way his year has gone with lots of mechanical DNFs.
Yes, he has a tremendous amount of enthusiasm for Ferrari, and I think any driver that goes to Ferrari does have this. It's the most amazing team to work for, even without Enzo. Years ago, I happened to be there, but I mean, to have that feeling of driving for the prancing horse is something very, very special, and not many drivers have that experience. However, Mercedes are known to be after the two Schumachers. That's Michael, of course, and his young brother Ralph, who's talked about is talked about as going to McLaren as a test driver for next year. And Mercedes would dearly love to have both the Schumachers driving for them, but they are very realistic that he will stay with Ferrari until such time as he wins the World Championship.
Johnny Herbert has exited the pits following a 2.5-minute pit stop. But given the history of attrition here in Germany, he might still wind up in the points. Who knows? There's the Williams team waiting for the first of their drivers to pit. Meanwhile, you see the gap from the first place car of Berger to the second place Benetton of his teammate Jean Alesi. And then Alesi back to Damon Hill. Jacques Villeneuve said earlier that despite the fact that he and his teammate are battling over the World Driving Championship, there would be no, as Villeneuve put it, stupid head games played. The battle, he said, is on the racetrack, not off of it. At which point Mika Hakkinen, who was sitting next to him, turned to him and said, "Liar." Pedro Lami's Minardi is the slower traffic ahead of race leader Jean Alesi. Hill will pit next time around. We'll take a quick timeout and return for it. Stay with us. We are back live at the Hockenheim Ring in the Neckar Valley in the heart of industrial Germany. Here comes Damon Hill for his first pit stop. You see the gap he has over Michael Schumacher, who's on a one-stop strategy. Schumacher will try to get ahead of Hill. Ooh, look at the tires smoke as he brings it in. Pop it into gear before they dropped it to the tarmac, and away he goes with a squeal of tires. Damon Hill is back out. Ahead of him, Johnny Herbert, who had that long pit stop with mechanical problems. There's one of the Tyrrells out of the race. Looks like Ukio Katayama walking away. Here's a look at what befell the Japanese driver.
He got out on that curbing, and once you're out there, of course, too much opposite lock history and across the road into the tire wall.
Katayama says that huge crash he suffered at Portugal last year affected him much more than he has ever let on. In a Friday press conference, he said that after the race he had a terrible time seeing, double vision, vomiting, all sorts of problems, and he didn't really get fully fit until the midway point of this season, which left a lot of folks shaking their heads in disbelief. And now his race is over. Meanwhile, Jean Alesi and Gerhard Berger are out front. There is Katayama walking away.
Incidentally, he's walking past Verstappen's car from the first lap or second lap incident, just in case you think it's somebody else. Those of you who are watching, you think it's Rosset.
Now, moments ago, David Coulthard had an interesting moment heading into the Jim Clark curves, passing a Jordan, and then everything went wrong.
See, the car gets loaded up on the left-hand side, lifts the inside wheel, and of course, he just about drags it round the corner. Now, of course, he's got a tire which he might have got a flat spot on, and he had to work himself back up to speed again.
Now there's Pedro Diniz as attrition begins to take hold. Diniz out-qualified his teammate Olivier Panis, and now his race is run.
As we said earlier, it is very, 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 very hard on these engines. Indeed, 75% of every lap is spent on full throttle, and that is very, very hard indeed on the motors.
Two Benettons up front, Berger and Alesi. their contract with the Japanese Mild 7 Tobacco Company is based on performance, and they haven't won a race this year, which means they get less money from the company. So obviously, a showing like this will do much for the Benetton morale. They've been losing team members recently to Tom Walkinshaw's new TWR Arrows F1 effort. It would be great for them and for Gerhard Berger if they could win this race, and for Jean Alesi for that matter, if he should come through.
There's even a whisper of Adrian Newey going from Williams to Benetton. But he's an aerodynamicist, and they seem to think Benetton need that. But judging by today, they don't need an aerodynamicist. They've got it all working for them exceptionally well. But of course, we'll see just how well Damon Hill can go. And of course, we hope Villeneuve will get past Schumacher soon, and we'll just see how well they can go once they're clear.
Rubens Barrichello out and in.
And now that is very interesting. You've actually, sorry about this, but you've actually got Schumacher there with both the Williams right behind him. And of course, he's done a great job in holding up Villeneuve so far for the race, sliding his way to the corner. And I believe I'm right in saying that is both Villeneuve and Hill right behind him. So it's going to be a right shambles there, because Hill hasn't made a very great inroad in anybody so far as overtaking is concerned.
Schumacher is right where he wants to be, ahead of the Williams car, so when he makes his pit stop, they will obviously pass him for position, but they will have a pit stop ahead of them, and if he can stay close, he can beat them. Here's Jean Alesi pitting for Benetton from second place.
These pit stops, great pit stop nonetheless, but they always seem to disappoint me because it does seem to put accent on the pit stops rather than driver ability on the track. Not saying the drivers aren't trying like crazy.
Schumacher and Villeneuve are in the pits at the same time. Let's see whose team gets them out first. If Villeneuve gets ahead of Schumacher, the German is in some trouble.
Well, Villeneuve would dearly love to be in front of Schumacher when he leaves the pits, but I don't think he's going to.
Almost like,
oh boy, what a move. Did you see that?
Oh,
that was the most exciting move of the race.
Those Jordan mechanics saw it, and I'm sure the stewards did as well.
Yeah, but there was nothing really wrong with it. I mean, Schumacher could say he just pulled out, and of course Villeneuve was already on the road, but there was no way he was going to get by because it's very narrow in that outside lane.
Of course, that brings up the problems in Formula One. Up, right rear tire down for Martin Brundle.
Yeah, don't see that very often. He's running back just about on that ruined tire.
He hasn't got that far to go. He's approaching the stadium section of the course. Brundle did not race here a year ago. He was replaced by Aguri Suzuki with the Ligier team.
You'll notice there that you have Irvine and Schumacher together as well, which is going to be very interesting.
Villeneuve has gotten around Schumacher. Schumacher will want to stay close.
Yeah, why can't we see that? We'd love to see. Why is the camera never in the right spot? But Schumacher and Irvine together, that's really something else to see those two going together.
About the halfway mark of the race now as the German Grand Prix goes down, as it always does, at an incredible pace. This is Gerhard Berger. Clutch dust, brake dust from the carbon-on-carbon brakes, billowing at the back.
Ooh, it's a slow stop. Well, a little slow. But of course, it is only going to be a one-stop event for him. Speed limit's gone. He can accelerate now as he goes out. And there's Alesi right behind him.
And lots of traffic up ahead.
I bet Berger's very happy about that. Because as we've seen, there is no overtaking or very little overtaking done on this. I don't know what he was waiting at or whether he's filling off a tear-off strip off his visor, no doubt. What a little group in front. He's got to sort that lot out. And in the middle of it, looks like it's Damon Hill right in the middle of two slower cars.
That's right. He's got Pedro Lamy and Ricardo Rosset up ahead. He's behind the Minardi and by it, just like that, as they accelerate up to about 195 miles an hour. Not quite the fastest point of the racetrack, but darn close. Damon Hill, fastest lap of the race. We'll be back. Welcome back live to the German Grand Prix. Damon Hill leads. Berger and Alesi in there. David Coulthard runs fourth. Jacques Villeneuve fifth, and Michael Schumacher sixth. After the first round of pit stops, only pit stop in Schumacher's case.
If you wonder what that track vehicle was doing on the grass back there, it was in fact protecting the marshals as they rebuilt the tire wall where the Tyrrell went piling in there.
Right, Ukio Katayama went off. Olivier Panis has made his second pit stop. Salo his first. There you see the Benetton crew, Flavio Briatore with his hat on backwards in the middle of the group. Damon Hill goes out the bottom of your picture. Gerhard Berger in second. John Alesi third. Sunday night baseball game of the week on ESPN coming up tonight at 8 p.m. It'll be the Philadelphia Phillies, hobbled by injuries but still fighting, visiting Three River Stadium to take on the Pittsburgh Pirates, live at 8 p.m. Eastern tonight on ESPN. Now here's another look from German television. I believe Jacques Villeneuve going around Michael Schumacher. That was a battle of chicken going into one of the chicanes.
Lovely move. He just banked on the fact that Michael wasn't up to temperature with his tires. Remember, they're probably about 40 degrees off they would run at when they get hot. So he just took a gamble at it and went through. Of course, Villeneuve is very well known for his very good overtaking maneuvers, having done a lot of that in IndyCar racing.
A very aggressive overtaker he is, young French-Canadian. Pedro Diniz out of the race due to the failure of his Mugen Honda engine in the Ligier. Ligier has announced that they have renewed their exclusive contract with Mugen Honda for next year, and that, of course, is significant in light of the fact that Renault will leave Formula One at the end of 1997. Mugen Honda is one of the engines that many of the teams were looking toward for the 1998 season.
Old Damon's whipping in some quick times, like 1.5 seconds quicker than anybody's been running before, so it shows just that he was being held up there earlier.
And this is exactly what he needs to do. He needs to get as far ahead of Michael Schumacher as he can, because he has another pit stop to make. Now the Benetton's beginning to drop back just that little bit. Gerhard Berger, here comes Jean Alesi.
It just puts fuel to the fact that when you get out in front, people just can't get by you. If you get that break, as they've done now, and probably had a slightly quicker pit stop in the Hill pit, and they didn't have such a good pit stop in the Benetton pit, and he just has that 2-second break, and then he pulls away at a second a lap. Not good for motor racing.
There's Flavio Briatore on the left, and his reaction to the pit work of the Benetton. Get him out, get him out, get him out, he's saying, probably in Italian.
But that's where they lost that lead. But it is depressing when you, as far as I'm concerned, when you just don't seem to have any overtaking. The only overtaking you've actually seen has been Villeneuve on Schumacher, which was a fine piece of maneuvering.
Damon Hill with lots of clean track around him now.
Very subdued crowd in the stadium. We saw in a previous shot there's no waving and shouting and horns blowing for dear old Michael right now, but nonetheless for Ferrari it's quite a party for them to have two cars lying in, what, 5th and 6th place, or 6th and 7th place, should I say, after the disasters they had in the previous 4 races.
With Renault leaving at the end of 1997, a lot of the teams have been questioning whether or not they would continue the pace of development that you need to in Formula One in order to stay at the top of the heap. Estimates of between $50 and $100 million spent on these Formula One engine programs during the course of a season. Folks from Renault say, yes, we will keep developing our engines. In fact, Damon Hill, I believe it was, said that Renault has a totally new engine on the drawing boards for next year, a one-season wonder. And Renault has also stated that they are not thinking at all about becoming a customer engine supplier. When the race is over, the engines go to the museum.
And they can't see any point either of going into IndyCar racing when they don't market their products in the United States. And I can quite see that. It's a great pity to lose such an amazingly talented engine department as Renault and find that they're not going to continue. But when you've won everything for so many years, there is no point. You're just there to be beaten.
Well, Bernard Dudot, who runs that engine department, says that they have projects on the board sufficiently interesting to keep their engineers on board. Here's a look at the drag strip. Makes up the entrance to the stadium section. You notice those tire marks coming from the left of your screen. That is the short course version on which many car companies in Germany do testing.
That is a horrible little short course too. I've done a bit there and it is awful. It's so small. You one corner to another corner to another corner. Look at the lead that Hill is pulling away from Berger. 1.5 seconds a lap. He's actually, his last lap was 1.5 seconds a lap quicker than Berger. The other two Ferraris running nose to tail. Very good for Eddie Irvine to have this run behind Schumacher. I mean, everybody rants and raves about Schumacher, and he is a great driver, but to see Eddie putting on such a firm, good performance is really good for his position with Ferrari.
The German director just loves that shot of the grandstand sweeping down to the racetrack as Michael Schumacher, the darling of this crowd of more than 125,000, makes his way through the stadium. Not a lot of enthusiasm in the flag waving, however. because they know right now Schumacher is not in a good position. Damon Hill is pulling away with every lap in the Williams Renault. We'll be back with more on a warm summer day in Germany. Back live to the Grand Prix of Germany. Damon Hill, the race leader, rockets his Williams Renault up to top speed. Ironically, despite the fact that 125,000 fans are here, very few of them actually see these cars at top speed because that happens out in the woods on the fastest part of the racetrack. Just about everybody is bunched in the stadium section where folks are going slower. You want the definition of understeer? There it is, and Rubens Barrichello is suffering it.
And he wishes he had his off-road vehicle with him right now.
There is his team, the Jordan squad, coming under increasing pressure to produce results.
What's astonishing here again is the fact that you have the Jordan team there with the Peugeot engine. Every other circuit we've been to, the Jordan has been the quickest in the straight line. And in fact, this weekend, the fastest speeds have not been the Jordans through the traps. So it just shows when these other cars are on the regular circuits, they have so much downforce they don't pull the speed. Yet on when they come to the fast circuits, they get rid of that drag and off they go, and they're really fast.
Good look at the Ferrari's nose to tail.
Look at Schumacher getting it sideways, trying to keep Eddie ahead of him, or behind him rather.
Eddie's look at Schumacher up ahead. Notice both of the drivers tilting their heads over. They do that to allow air into the air box above the engine to get the best ram effect.
I know we've said it before, but the helmet that Schumacher's wearing, the Bell helmet, in fact, has been modeled specially for him. It's very like the IndyCar helmets, but in fact, it actually increases about 5 brake horsepower by having that helmet on over a conventional round helmet, as we call it.
Journalists still haven't gotten used to it here. Someone asked Eddie Irvine why Michael Schumacher wears such an oddly shaped helmet. He responded, because he has such an oddly shaped head. Let's take a look at our Haviland race recap. The race leader is Damon Hill, who has led since lap 24, and the laps are clicking off quickly as you take a look at Niki Lauda, Formula One legend and Ferrari consultant. One lead change between 2 drivers. Those 2 are Gerhard Berger and Hill. Out of the race, Mika Hakkinen. His teammate Ukio Katayama is out as well, so it's another dull day for Tyrrell. Pedro Diniz lost an engine. Jos Verstappen had a collision with Johnny Herbert. Herbert has also parked his Sauber in the garage with mechanical difficulties. Close group here. Ricardo Rosset in the TWR Arrows footwork car. Rosset, one of 3 drivers in this field who wears glasses, actually wears contacts when he races, obviously. Plunks himself right in front of the Ferrari teammates in that corner, giving Jacques Villeneuve a break. Now Schumacher moves alongside and past. Yeah, one thing you don't see from Schumacher is a lot of that fist waving when he's held up by another driver.
Well, I think he's too busy trying to keep the car on the road, frankly, Bob. But it's interesting to see here, in fact, that Villeneuve has been severely held up. Oh, look at it.
Well, that's how Villeneuve got behind Rosset.
I was wondering why, because he was actually 5 seconds ahead of Schumacher on the previous lap. And here he is with Schumacher all over him. But of course, you just have to carry that momentum. I don't think it'll do Michael much good, mind you, but because Villeneuve's no way he's going to let him by. But if he'd been close, he'd have really capitalized on that maneuver when he went out wide. You've got to realize that these cars are sliding so much to these turns. There's the little dip as you come into the south curve. He's going in the pits.
Eddie Irvine. Ferrari has to decide whether to take up his option by the end of this month, which of course we're just about there, but there's been no announcement this weekend, although it's widely expected Irvine will be back.
Yeah, it'd be a very silly move to take anybody else. He's fitted in very well. He's given no aggro within the team. He's been a perfect team member, perfect teammate for Michael, and in fact is so in awe of the man. Looks like it was a great pit stop, 7.7 seconds. That is beautiful. He could well come out in a very good position on the track. Of course, we've got to wait for Schumacher's second stop, although they say he might go around with 1. But that was a beautiful stop. But no, I think Irvine is the perfect match for Schumacher. He's very talented. We've seen that. He's proved beyond measure that he, whereas Schumacher's other teammates have always rather let themselves down with Schumacher, Irvine has carried himself in great esteem as far as the other drivers are concerned.
Johnny Herbert was felled by a gearbox problem. We are informed from the Sauber garage. Tough break for the Englishman. While Damon Hill continues on his merry way.
That's 2 laps before a pit stop.
Remember, he started on scuffed tires, so it's no surprise that he's going to need to come in.
Well, he's got this 11-second buffer, which isn't very much. I guess they're all figuring out with the Goodyear people that they're going to have to make 2 stops for tyres, and so therefore he may as well make the change now while he's got a clear bit of road ahead of him, and when he comes out he'll have the same gap.
We expect another stop for both Berger and Alesi, but you never know what might happen in Formula One. We'll be back to Germany for more live in a moment. We are back live at the Hockenheim Ring in Germany. David Coulthard pits from 4th place in the McLaren. Remember, he's using that older spec Mercedes engine. Hakkinen had the newer, more powerful number, but Hakkinen's gearbox let him down. He is parked by the side of this section of the racetrack, actually. And his teammate David Coulthard will carry McLaren colors the rest of the way. There's Jacques Villeneuve.
Did I notice there was only one Ferrari in this picture? I can't see where...
Eddie Irvine?
Looks like there's just one Ferrari.
He pitted. Recall he had his second pit stop.
Oh, right, of course he did, you silly man.
Here comes Coulthard. Home race for Mercedes. Boris Becker, the tennis star, is here. The second most famous tennis player in Germany, I guess we might say. Steffi Graf being probably the most popular athlete in Germany. Well, I don't know. Michael Schumacher might dispute that, but who's to say? There's Damon Hill with another pit stop coming up in his future. He's got Heinz-Harald Frentzen just ahead of him. Frentzen runs 9th. I'm a little surprised we haven't seen more of him on German television. See, he too tilting his head over to let the air into the airbox. He's also wearing a different helmet this weekend, a design that came from among 5,700 presented by children as a part of a program to raise money to get kids to wear bicycle helmets, to publicize bicycle helmets in Germany. The helmet will be auctioned off after Frentzen wears it in this race. There's the Williams team waiting for their man. Sauber able to keep pace with the Williams right there.
He's losing a lot of it somewhere, that's for certain. Probably in the stadium.
I would guess.
We do know at Silverstone that in fact they were losing like 11 miles an hour down the straights at Silverstone over the Jordans. Well, of course, the Jordans aren't running well here either, but it just shows the differential between some of these engines.
Mika Salo in the Tyrrell ahead of Gerhard Berger in the Benetton. I'd like to see that battle between the Williams and the Sauber again. Here they come. Yes, he's not pulling away at a tremendous clip from that Ford V10 powered Sauber.
Yeah. Certainly doesn't look like 11 miles an hour, that's for certain. But this is where the Williams seems to have this wonderful compromise between high-speed straights and downforce through the corners. See, look at the lead. He's pulled out through there. He's pulled out 50 yards through the first 2 corners of the stadium.
If you're a fan of auto racing, you're going to stick around a little bit later in the day. We'll have RPM today at noon Eastern time here on the Deuce. Short while after we finish our race, and then tonight at 8 p.m. for all the news of the day in motorsports, and it's a big one, including Indy cars at Michigan. Jimmy Vasser, his teammate Alex Zanardi, right up there on the front row. All important stop, and a good one for Damon Hill. Now, Gerhard Berger was about 16 seconds behind. Damon Hill will fall in behind them as Gerhard Berger reasserts himself into the lead.
And this, of course, will slow Damon down because obviously he's not, well, as we've seen historically, he's not going to get by these two. So therefore, he's going to be stuck there. His times will drop back a bit, and he'll be waiting and hoping that these two Benettons make a pit stop. But we do know that their pit stops, the previously, were a bit slower than Hill's. Makes you wonder whether maybe they did put a lot more fuel in, and maybe they can run to the end of the race, but only time will tell.
Well, the way Hill is positioned right now, it's their only hope of winning this race, because if they have to stop, Hill will be all over them.
Well, historically, of course, in years gone by, Benetton have had the most wonderful pit strategy, and they've often out-fumbled as we... Oh, Schumacher's puking out smoke out the back of his car.
Oh, no.
Dear.
2 weeks ago in Britain, RTL, that's Eddie Irvine's car. 2 weeks ago in Britain, when Michael Schumacher dropped out of the race, 2.6 million German televisions tuned out of the race. That is the significance of Michael Schumacher to the German auto racing fans. As Damon Hill goes around Mika Salo.
I thought he went round...
Gerhard Berger.
No, he went past the Lacey.
Well, and Lacey's back there as well.
Yeah, but the most amazing bit of actual overtaking makes you wonder whether Lacey has a problem. But of course, Hill is on fresh tyres, which gives him that advantage and that confidence.
Take a look at them as they come through the stadium section. Hill was absolutely flying before that last pit stop, so he is really on his game today. Perhaps we shouldn't be completely surprised if he overhauls Alesi.
Eddie what Berger will do. Berger being in the lead isn't going to give this up that easily, unless his tires have really gone away.
Alesi is fading. Problems for the Frenchman. Maybe the tires have just gone away. He needs that second pit stop. At any rate, we'll step away for a moment and be right back as Irvine parks the Ferrari.
Environmental.
Back in Germany, Eddie Irvine climbs aboard a course vehicle to be taken back to the pits after his Ferrari gave up the ghost, but he did complete 34 laps. And that is more than 3 times as many laps as he had completed in the 3 previous Grands Prix. 11 laps total in Canada, France, and Britain. Here are the cars out of the race. Irvine joins the list. Actually, I must admit, it's not as much attrition, or words to that effect, as I expected to see in this race.
It's such a pity for poor Eddie. It always seems to happen to the second driver at Ferrari that things seem to go wrong, and I don't think it's for any particular reason. I don't think they try necessarily anything totally different from one car to the other, particularly this week after their reliability problems to date. I'm sure the cars have been very conservatively constructed and put together for this race. But Hill is all over the back of Berger, but not actually making great inroads on him. He's just over a second behind him. I don't think he's going to be able to do much about Damon, which is a great... Sorry, he's not... I mean, Berger's not going to do much about Damon. He's just going to have to live with it. Wait for the moment when he takes a plunge down the inside. But remember, of course, that Hill's tyres are now getting a little bit worn. So consequently, although Berger is sliding around a lot in that comparison shot there through the east curve, both bashing off the curbs as they do through that particular section of the track and sliding a little bit more there as he turns in.
You saw that comparison of best laps and last laps, and Damon obviously noticeably quicker than Berger.
Of course, if Berger can just hold Damon up for a few laps and let Damon's tyres get a little bit worn, as they say, then Damon won't have quite the same advantage as he had on that first couple of laps, when, of course, you saw him zapped by Alesi. It makes me wonder what the problem with Alesi is. 5.6 on Alesi. I wonder what the problem is with him, because he was running well with Berger earlier on.
Berger with 9 career victories.
Looks like Hill is really looking to have a go on the inside, going down into the Clark chicane, but no, he's probably zapped too far back. He looked closer in that beautiful telephoto shot, but always going around the outside. No, Berger's not going to let him.
Damon Hill has twice as many wins as Gerhard Berger, despite the fact that Berger is closing in on 200 career Grand Prix starts. Eddie is not the oldest man in Formula One. That honor, if that's what it is reserved for Martin Brundle by a few weeks.
Look at it. Oh, Gerhard's using all that inside bit of track, and there's no way around the outside coming down in there, because they are traveling at 213 miles an hour. They certainly were in qualifying down into that section.
Berger with a look in his mirrors. He knows Hill is there, but this is for position. Berger can drive his car wherever he wants to.
But if he puts a foot wrong, he is history. Damon will benefit from it and make the most of it, capitalize on it. You can just see Alesi coming into the chicane as these two come out, the center chicane. This is a very difficult, sorry Bob, this is a very difficult corner to overtake because it's a very fast corner. It's a 4th gear corner into the stadium. This sometimes can be good enough. Hill could just get through into the stadium that bit faster, carry a bit more momentum. It would help him, and he could come down inside there for the Sachs curve. But you can see Berger actually pulls away through that section, which says a lot for the handling and stability of the car in the slower speed corners.
Hard on the gas, across the start-finish line. Pump on.
It probably means they'd give it a bit more boost if they had it. In the old days,
pump.
we used to be able to flick a switch on some of our cars in years gone by. You just press a button and pick up another 50 horsepower. Totally illegal, but it did help you go by.
Well, I suspect they're reacting to information they're getting on the telemetry system. They have tons of computer equipment at the back of the garage. The Renault engineers watching what that engine is doing. They want Damon to hit a pump switch, whether it's fuel or oil or something, some kind of a auxiliary pump perhaps, in case he's losing oil pressure or something is not the way the engineers would like to see it. The battle is for the lead. Berger and Hill as close together as they can be. We'll be back with more from Germany to see how the battle turns out. Stay with us. Welcome back to a classic Formula One potboiler in Germany. Bob Barcia, Derek Bell, glad to have you with us as Damon Hill is all over the back of Gerhard Berger, trying desperately to find a way by, knowing that his teammate Jacques Villeneuve and Michael Schumacher are not far behind. Hill is walking a tightrope. He has to get by Berger. Berger does not have to let him by. He is, after all, the race leader.
Gerhard's doing a wonderful job, but look at Damon really looking all over the place to go by. Berger has the advantage, of course, that most of these parts of the track, you come round a curve. It looks like they're straights, but in fact there are curves all the way, which means Berger can take the inside line, and Damon actually has to go round the outside, and then Berger whips across and blocks him out. In front of them, of course, they looks like they've got... who would that be in front? Is that Rosset in front? Couldn't see it. It wasn't a very good shot. But, of course, they got a car in front that could sort of hold up or could aid Berger's move. We don't know.
Sean Alesi runs third. Saw him at the back of your screen in the stadium section. No sign of Schumacher and Villeneuve running close together. The Williams team in their garage, eyes glued to the monitor, looking at the same pictures you are. Now they're talking about mixture. They want him to put it on setting 4, whatever that means.
Which generally would really mean a little bit richer than it was running. You go back to 1 for Lena, but of course he might have been at 7 beforehand. But generally the higher the number, the richer it is, and he can just flick it off or on as it goes. You can see it. You can see, I think, Alesi just behind there in that shot. He's not too far back, but in fact, Villeneuve is 30 seconds back on that.
And slower traffic just ahead as the race leaders approach. Oh!
Hill gets a little bit crossed up there as he comes in with the brakes on, getting a little bit frustrated. He has to, in my opinion, I think in most people's opinion, he has to make the move. He has to get by Gerhard. He has to show that he can overtake in Grand Prix racing. Instead of just sitting there waiting to reap in the points. But of course, Frank Williams would love him just to get the points. From Damon's point of view within the team, he needs to get out in front and show that he's master of Hockenheim.
Hill has never won here. Berger won the race in 1994 with a big help from attrition. Frank Hill. I've been calling him that all weekend. Frank Williams looking on. Damon Hill would like it to be Frank Hill. He'd like to own the team. And with the numbers he's looking at for next year, $12 to $18 million, he might as well. A lot of talk about the future of Formula One this weekend. The Concord Agreement, which basically runs the sport, has not yet been signed. The deadline is the end of the year. Williams is one of the teams that does not want to sign it. McLaren is the other, and that is due in part to a dispute over the division of the $100s of millions of dollars that come into this sport. Bernie Ecclestone plans to make Formula One a $2 billion sport, or I guess maybe he'll shoot for $1 billion first, by the end of the century. And the teams are wondering, how are we going to split up all that money? See them now telling Damon Hill to turn the pump off. We'll take a timeout. The drama is building. We'll be back live to Germany. We are back live in Germany, where the dance with the devil continues. Tremendous battles on the racetrack. Up ahead, there's Gerhard Berger leading the race. Damon Hill just behind him. On the previous straightaway, Hill was right up on Berger's gearbox. What an incredible athletic exercise it must be to be hard on the throttle, but dancing on the brake pedal, staying as close as you can to the car ahead, but not wanting to touch him, ready at any moment to pounce. Remember, both of these cars are powered by Renault engines, very evenly matched right now.
3 laps. Oh no, the engine blew on Berger's car. I don't believe it. That is tragic with 3 laps to go. Oh my goodness. I really thought we had a victory there for Benetton. That's a tragedy.
Left side cylinder bank. A lot of sharp right-hand corners here. But something let go. Berger's done, and with it, the battle is over.
That was wicked. That just isn't fair. Gerhard Gerhard was doing a magnificent job. I mean, albeit he was blocking Damon, but he was doing a great job. The fans would have freaked out if Berger had won, because after all, he's Austrian. He's not that far from Germany. Look at that explosion on the left side of the engine.
Boy, David
really
Hill,
did blow.
Lucky to get out of the way of all the oil that came out. If he'd been right on Berger's tail, as he had been lap after lap preceding it, that could have been really messy.
It probably didn't do much for Damon's visor, but Alesi would have caught a load of that oil and, of course, would have to work his way through it. And then look here, we've got a great shot. Schumacher with Coulthard all over the back of him. Villeneuve, of course, well out of the picture and away. This is for 5th place, I think, Bob.
David Coulthard comes into this round of the championship tied for 7th with just 16 points on the season. In fact, he is tied with his teammate Mika Hakkinen. Hakkinen's out of the race. The battle is for 3rd. There you see the Benetton team watching all of this. Alesi with Villeneuve just behind him in the other Williams, and then Schumacher in the red Ferrari with Coulthard behind him.
Yes, he's really mirroring him through the corner, but they're quite a way back, I think, at the moment. Still, I'm sure Coulthard would love for Mercedes to get in front. It would just do Mercedes-Benz a power of good to just pop in one ahead of their German hero, Schumacher.
Laps running down. I believe there'll be 2 to go next time across the start-finish line. And now the Ferrari flags begin to wave. The crowd sensing that Michael Schumacher needs their support. Here he comes. A German driver in an Italian car ahead of a Scottish driver in a British car with a German engine.
Makes you wonder just who they're rooting for, but judging by those flags, I can't see Mercedes-Benz wave too much.
There you see Hill's lead over Alesi, 7.7 seconds. Villeneuve, 33 seconds behind the race leader.
That seems so cruel on Gerhard Berger. He did such a great job. He led the race from the very start, lost a bit, of course, when Hill between stops, but he kept it ahead, having only done 1 stop. Very, very good piece of work by their team, keeping the cars out there for 1 stop.
Next time across the line, there will be 1 lap to go as Schumacher has David Coulthard behind. There is Villeneuve. Now, has Villeneuve gone around Alesi? No, he was well behind.
No, that's
the other Tyrrell. It's Mika Salo.
Can't believe that Coulthard's not going to have a bit of a go here in a minute. He's got 1.5 laps. Oh, look at the power of that Ferrari. It streaks out of that corner, but of course, some of it could be to Mr. Schumacher's superb skills of getting the power down earlier than anybody else.
Let's correct ourselves. This is for 4th place. Villeneuve is 3rd. Behind Hill and Alesi. Then Schumacher 4th. Coulthard 5th. And Rubens Barrichello has moved the Jordan up into the 6th and final points-paying position.
First time we've seen or heard of the car for most of the race, apart from when I think it was Coulthard nearly went off overtaking him earlier on. Oh, the fans are getting going now, Bob.
1 lap remaining. David Coulthard's going to make a move. He'll have to make it soon. But the way Coulthard's season has been going, I wouldn't be surprised if he just wants to hold on for points. Meanwhile, there is the race leader, Damon Hill, who has never won here in Germany. He's had his heart broken here on several occasions, including blowing a tire while leading when he was teammates with Alain Prost back in 1993. And of course, last year, when the car flew off the racetrack in the first turn on only the 2nd lap while leading after dominating qualifying. But it appears he will get his German victory today. There is Jean Alesi, 10 seconds back and fading in the 2nd place Benetton Renault. And in 3rd place is Jacques Villeneuve. That will be more than enough to clinch the Constructors' title for William Coulthard. Looking down the inside.
It wasn't actually, he was looking down the outside.
Yeah, which makes it even more extraordinary.
That's why he sort of found himself a little bit embarrassed on the exit. But of course, he's going to have a job now to catch up Schumacher with just half a lap to go. Hill comes through the last turn for the last time.
The team will be out on the pit wall. The checkered flag will wave, and Damon Hill has his 7th victory of the season in 11 starts. Keep in mind that the Formula One record for victories in a year is 9, held by Nigel Mansell. Damon Hill well on track to break that, his 20th career win. Jean Alesi picks up 2nd place points for Benetton.
And the horns are blowing for Schumacher as he comes through.
Jacques Villeneuve finishes 3rd, Schumacher will finish 4th, and David Coulthard will finish 5th.
Fine drive by David Coulthard. I think an excellent drive. He drove very intelligently. He didn't have the power of Hakkinen, yet he led him the whole way until Hakkinen fell out, and he's made a fine showing. And he needed it. He had some pretty disappointing results just recently.
Not what the crowd wanted here in Germany, but the fireworks take off anyway. Almost a national pastime for the crowds here In Germany, their man Michael Schumacher has finished third. For Damon Hill, Schumacher's arch rival for the World Championship the last 3 seasons, his 7th victory of the year as he passes Gerhard Berger's stranded Benetton.
He's looking to pick him up. I think he's going to pick him up, is he?
I believe John Alesi is looking to pick him up. Berger already got into he saw Eddie Irvine get into a course car. Berger may still be there. He may have a ride. Yes, he does. He climbs aboard John Alesi's machine for the ride back to the pits.
Not the way he wanted to finish the last lap of the German Grand Prix, but it was a wonderful piece of driving prior to that. Absolutely superb, I thought, by Berger.
Michael Schumacher moving slowly to wave at the crowd. Gerhard Berger rides home aboard John Alesi's machine. Give him credit. He led the race and fought valiantly until the car let him down. Schumacher giving his Austrian rival a bit of a wave. This is something of a comeback for Ferrari, too, after the misery of the last 3 or 4 races. Now Schumacher going slowly.
They're missing out the chicane to save the extra swerves. Well, I'm very glad for Benetton. I mean, I know it was 2nd place, but they're 2nd on the rostrum. That is very, very good indeed for Benetton. They needed these results. I think it's been very unfair. They've had a lot of internal scrapping going on. I think it's very, very good indeed for them all, for the drivers particularly, to have that stability.
Damon Hill has his 20th career win. His team has the Constructors' title. We'll be back to Germany after this. Live in Germany, Gerhard Berger gets his ride to Parc Fermé alongside teammate John Alesi. In fact, just about on top of him. There's the man of the hour for this German crowd, Michael Schumacher, who brings his Ferrari home 3rd. Here's a look at the final results. Damon Hill, his 7th win of the year. Alesi 2nd, Jacques Villeneuve 3rd, Schumacher 4th, I should say. David Coulthard 5th, and Rubens Barrichello 6th. We didn't have quite as much attrition as was expected. All of these cars still running at the end. Panis, Frentzen, Salo, Brundle, Rosset, and Pedro Lamy. 19 cars started the race. Gerhard Berger will be classified as a finisher, although he was not running at the finish when his engine let go, while leading Damon Hill in a great battle for the race lead. There you see Hill climbing the podium with his teammate Jacques Villeneuve. He will fatten his lead over Villeneuve in the run for the 1996 World Drivers' Championship. But the Constructors' Championship is finished. Williams-Renault has picked up their 8th and their 4th in the last 5 years. What a moment for a Grand Prix driver to climb the top of the podium. And for Damon Hill, this is the 20th time he has done it. A spectacular career. His 20th win coming in only his 62nd Formula One start. A phenomenal winning percentage. You see the podium. Momentarily, the top 3 drivers will take their places. A representative of the Williams team there as well to accept the trophies. Jean Alesi makes his way up.
How can they possibly consider Hill not being with Williams next year when you see the way he actually controls the whole of the team as far as on that track? I mean, he dominated Jack today. Jack, I know, had a poor start, but so did Damon, and just couldn't do much about it. I know he was held up more, but nevertheless, Damon drove a masterful race, worthy of his position in #1 in the championship, I think. But of course, it is Jack's first time at Hockenheim.
And credit the German crowd for giving a nice round of applause for Damon Hill. Well, I say it's a German crowd. I see a lot of Union Jacks in that group. And now God Save the Queen will play in honor of race winner Damon Hill. Making up just that little bit, perhaps, for Linford Christie being disqualified from the Olympic 100 meters final last night. Jacques Villeneuve, fellow Canadian, Donovan Bailey won the Olympic 100, a world record time. Congratulations to Damon Hill, winner of the Grosse Preis van Deutschland for 1996.
The winning constructor, represented by the Rockman's Williams Turner team, the trophy presented by
7 wins. The record for a single season is 9. I suspect the odds are not very good on Nigel Mansell keeping that record to the end of 1996. So there's Boris Becker, the old redhead himself, presenting the second place trophy to Jean Alesi.
The president of the Automobile Club von Deutschland.
President of the Automobile Club of Germany, presenting the third place trophy. Obviously, he just got here from the golf course.
Don't be rude about his trousers. We have some pretty colorful ones in the United States, believe me.
Now the Magnum of Champagne in the silver holder as the celebrities take cover. Sterling Moss shook one of those silver Moet Champagne Magnums for the first time at the recent opening of a gallery in England. I saw the pictures in a British racing magazine. I didn't realize Sterling never got to do that in Formula One, despite having won races. It's a more recent tradition.
Yes, it would be interesting to know just when that started. We'll have to ask our statistician when it was.
Here's a look at the drivers' points following 11 rounds of 16 in the the Constructors' Championship. Following 11 races, it's all over. Williams-Renault unassailable. Benetton Renault, the former champions, will give up their title. Ferrari is third. But a lot hangs on your position in the Constructors' Championship, including garage position next year. So Ferrari, Benetton, McLaren, and the rest will be fighting for every point they can get. In the drivers' title chase, Damon Hill opens his lead now to 21 points over teammate Jacques Villeneuve. Jean Alesi is in third. Michael Schumacher in fourth, followed by David Coulthard, Gerhard Berger, and Mika Hakkinen. 16 drivers in all have scored points in the 1996 season.